What's going on, everybody? It is maybe the best time of the year. NFL
Oh, yeah.
football is finally back, and it actually tentatively looks like it could be a fun, exciting season for the Cardinals after a few years of it not being that way. We're going to talk a little bit about the Birds. Ben joining us, one of our insiders. Ben, how you doing, man?
Doing great, doing great. Very excited. You got the Eagles Cowboys tonight. Football's back, baby. I know we got some college football, but the NFL's back, fantasy's back, Cardinals are back. I'm very excited.
Feels like we didn't get maybe as much fun with the baseball season as people were hoping. So, not a bad time for football to kind of introduce itself and let us have something else kind of shift a little bit towards at this point in the year.
Not over yet for the Diamondbacks, but not
What
looking
is,
too good either.
yeah, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Opening up the year against, I mean, it might as well almost be another preseason game. Playing the Saints, who are in the Arch Manning sweepstakes by everything that it looks like. But um, a lot of things to talk about this year. I think just kind of starting overall, it feels a little bit like this is a make or break season for a lot of the guys for the Cardinals. Whether, you're looking at, the head coach, whether you're looking at Kyler Murray, there's a few guys that it feels like the jury has been out and we keep waiting and kind of trying to gather more information. And this is the first time in a while where maybe there's some expectations or at least some thought that there could be a good run. And like, it feels a little bit like the first time in a while where there might be some pressure to actually, like, you're gonna have to get it done this year.
Anticipation is high. I mean, everyone knows that the Cardinals are not they're still rebuilding, but they're going all in. I mean, you've addressed the defense and there's so many things that are gonna come with this season. But right now, when we're just talking about is this a make or break season, I think Jonathan Gannon and Monty Austinford have done a great job at building their culture. They kind of said what they wanted to do and outlined it first season, and they've made it work. The draft picks have been hitting. The free agents have been coming here, and they're not listening to the outside noise. I mean, when it comes to Kyler Murray, I think there's a lot of people, that feel that way about Kyler, and only time will tell. If the Cardinals miss the playoffs again this season, conversations are going to have to be had.
Yeah.
I can't see the Cardinals missing the playoffs with the schedule that they have this season. Like you said, week one, 2020 Super Bowl before COVID hit. My sister got married on Super Bowl Sunday. She got married in New Orleans.
Interesting.
The Super Bowl was in Hard Rock, but I got to experience. No, yeah, she told me you're getting married on Super Bowl Sunday. I said, "You're kidding, right?" But it was an amazing event, and I'll tell you, my mom, who wore her black Cardinals Larry Fitzgerald jersey, black 11,
Man,
she
it's
got a
so
lot of comments from Saints fans who were thinking it was a black Julio Jones Atlanta Falcons jersey, and they weren't very kind until they saw it was Larry. That atmosphere in New Orleans on Super Bowl Sunday, the Saints fans came out and showed everyone who was there how the Saints fans got down. They are a loud city regardless if they're in it, regardless if they're good or not. So week one is going to bring a lot of fireworks, especially, for that Saints team. If we're talking about that game in general, there's so many. Then we can dive into that in a second. But for anticipations for this season, it starts with week one. I think Kyler Murray's gotta get some confidence built in this week one for sure.
Yeah, I used to work in Louisiana, and everyone will have argue about this, that, and the other, have their differences, except when it comes to the Saints. That you want to talk about a team for the entire like state. They love the Saints over there, and
Oh
they
yeah.
absolutely hate the Falcons. So if they do we lost, I do not doubt that she heard all types of things that were going on in that situation.
Until they found out it was Larry, and they go, "Oh, Larry, what you doing?
That's
How you
hands,
doing? What
Larry.
you doing out here?"
I love that commercial. Yeah, looking at it, I mean, let's start, I guess, a little bit on kind of what they can expect from the Saints. They lost so many. I mean, Derek Carr decides to retire, like, and they thought that maybe that was going to be a bridge quarterback, if not give him a shot about being kind of the guy for a few years. Didn't work out. Now they decide to go with Spencer Rattler, who people in Arizona are familiar with. I even covered him when he was at Oklahoma. And a guy that bounced around a little bit in college until he finally got his opportunity and then has been sitting, and now he gets an opportunity to try and do something in this. But I mean, you got Olave. What else do you have as weapons over there? It's just there's so many missing pieces on this team. When you look
Sick.
at it, is there things that you think can give the Cardinals some trouble, or are there any spots where you're like, that actually could be a pretty tough matchup?
Yeah, guys like Rashid Shaheed can hit at any time. Brandon Cooks returns back home to the Saints. I don't see that being enough firepower. Olave is a great receiver, but how good is Spencer Rattler going to be? One of my keys to this game was and has to be containing Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara is an absolute boss. I mean, he reminds me of Ricky Williams. He's stocky, but can just juke you out of your shoes. I mean, he's brutal yet swift. I mean, he's one of those guys that can pop off at any time. I think one of the few things that the Cardinals need to realize, and they've got a lot of talent on this defensive side, a lot of new talent. It's going to take a little while to gel. I'm expecting some highlight plays. I'm expecting, some Josh Sweat and Calais Campbell to get theirs. I one of my key players to this game was going to be Will Johnson. I think Will Johnson has shown so much determination recently and just kind of fire that he doesn't even seem like a rookie. He's ready to rock and roll. But this Saints team, Spencer Rattler, you have to send the pressure. You have to get after him. Jonathan Gannon has a perfect matchup week 1 to get this defense some confidence and some consistency. I mean, not just on the defensive side on in all facets, but especially with how many new pieces of the puzzle. You're going to have Dalvin Tomlinson, Calais Campbell, and Josh Sweat. Let's see how they work against that Saints O line. Is Spencer Rattler able to take that next step? A lot of people in the Saints organization think so. A lot of people on social media, Saints fans think so. They're saying total attitude adjustment. This guy is night and day from what he sounded like last year. And a lot of people were excited for him to get that kind of fresh start. And so I think that's kind of what the Saints need to do going into week 1. Just be like, all right, no expectations, let her rip, but step by step, grow at this. And he sounds like he's on board. So the Cardinals don't have it's the NFL, any given Sunday, but they have a good matchup on their hands, which they should take advantage of. But this defense it's gonna take a little time for them to gel.
Yeah, what concerns me a little bit is, I mean, Rattler was the number one player coming out of high school. He is a great arm and great talent. It's just there was some questions on, I guess, on the depth of throws and kind of character things that people questioned for a while. But when he was just a pocket passer, like he can pick you apart. And if you're playing against a new defense, the best thing for for he's not a rookie quarterback, but a best thing for a young quarterback is if you can get some easy completions. And you sit there and talk about like Alvin Kamara. Kamara is probably going to have 8 catches in this game, somewhere around that,
Yeah,
like just stuff that's going to move the chains and stuff that's going to be like little dink and dunk drop offs.
check
And
downs.
that's not only going to be good for them in the fact that you're getting Kamara like into the flow, but that also does a lot for a young quarterback just to see the chains moving and to kind of settle in and stuff like that. And so there's a part of me that says, like, that's not a great combo to go up against for a new defense and kind of facing, like, you don't want to give any team, these are all pro guys. You don't want to give anybody confidence and kind of let them start to settle in. If you have the opportunity against guys like this that don't have that many reps, you want to hit them in the mouth early and kind of knock them back and then see what you can do against them if you can knock them out early. But I'm a little concerned about the idea of him finding a rhythm because of a guy like Kamara that you're just going to be able to have like easy completions to. And a guy that's that you mentioned, I mean, he is tough to guard when he's not just rushing the ball, but when he's catching it out of the backfield.
They will have some I do think they will be able to move the chains at times. Like you said, that short game when he's checking down to Kamara, it's good luck. With any defense, he's that good of a player. No, what Spencer Rattler needs to do is focus on the small ball. He doesn't need to, do all these flashy, 70-yard down the field pass, to Rashid Shaheed sounds great, but until you got Buda Baker right there. I think that the Saints are going to play conservative. The biggest thing for me is the defense are going to have their opportunities with turnovers or just getting them off the field. You have to capitalize on it. And then, looking at the Cardinals offense for week 1, I'm thinking, you're returning all 5 guys in your offensive line. controlling the clock management with James Conner, run the ball, smash mouth football with James Conner, and kind of almost do the same. A lot of people think this offense is going to be a lot different with, I can't see it. I think this offense is going to move how the running game goes. Marvin Harrison, they say, is gonna have a second year leap. I think there's too much talent. You got to spread the love. You still got Greg Dortch, you still got Michael Wilson, and Trey McBride, one of the top 3 tight ends in the NFL. Trey McBride's gonna get his. Trey
He might be
McBride,
the
I
best.
mean, 11,100 or what was it? Oh, forget how many. It was 1,146 total yards last season. It was incredible for Trey McBride. I mean, he was one of those guys, a highlight player for this Cardinals offense. If they're not able to spread the ball around, like you can't force the ball to Marvin Harrison. Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison recently talked about their relationship growing. Kyler said he was talking about, I don't have to beg Marv to talk to me, or Marvin was saying, I'm kind of opening up my shell a little bit. That communication's key, but we've also seen Kyler have a great communication with Greg Dortch and Michael Wilson. Those guys aren't going away, and I think Drew Petzing's offense is catered to spreading the ball around for the Arizona Cardinals for sure. So this offense may look similar to last season, and it's just conservative, run first, and then let the run game open up your offense for guys like Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride and Greg Dortch and Michael Wilson.
So, one last thing I want to say about the Saints too. They didn't have any expectations last year, and a lot of people forget they scored 91 points in their first 2 games last year before they, like, fell off a cliff. Like, they randomly have the ability of making you have a very long afternoon, like, and whether or not that's something that will repeat itself, it's just like people remember how bad they were last year and where it fell off the cliff and everything, but, like, they started off really, really there was a hot second where people thought they might have the best offense in the league, though after 2 weeks in, they were going crazy. I wanna talk more about Marvin Harrison Jr. There's a weird narrative, I guess, nationally, not weird, but he kinda got dragged a little bit, and people talked about him having this, like, down year, and, like, his numbers weren't horrible. It's just that there was other rookies in his class that had better numbers that people theoretically expected him to have a better season than. He got massive. That boy found a weight room in this offseason.
Yeah,
He certainly was lifting some iron. I one season feels like way too early of a time to throw out I don't know if he can be your number 1 when, you need more time on it. But do you have any concerns that he was a little bit of a product of his last name and a little bit of a product of coming out of Ohio State and then having everything going on there? Or is he still in your mind? Because normally you see a sophomore slump. You jump onto the scene, people don't know what to expect out of you, and you go crazy as people that don't have tape on you yet. You don't necessarily see a little bit of a disappointing down year with year 1. And I don't know how much of that was just kind of circumstance, how much of that's playing with a guy like Kyler that it's not purely drop back and pass that Kyler, can run as well. So that's part of the offense is going to be taking that. And I want to believe that he can still be that pure number 1 on a team, but year 1 didn't do a lot of courage in that kind of department,
I know a lot of people, want him to be a Justin Jefferson or a Jamar Chase,
right?
and I
They had
think,
crazy first years. Like,
and Larry Fitzgerald's first year as a Cardinal wasn't necessarily the greatest. There have been guys, who have rookie seasons that, and he still had a decent rookie year. But I will say, if Marvin Harrison was in another offense where he was the focal point, it wouldn't surprise me if he had better numbers. But like he's just not the ball will not be forced to Marvin Harrison Jr. We've seen that. Kyler is not going to force the
oh, he
ball
made that clear. It's not
to
my job to
appease
get him the
him,
ball.
or it's his relationship with his entire offense is built around the trust of each other. James Conner is, I think, the biggest piece of that trust. Trey McBride is growing. You're gonna see a lot more Trey McBride than I think Marvin Harrison this year. I don't think their offense is going to shift. I think Marvin Harrison will play a big part, but if you're if we're in the if the Cardinals are in the red zone and we're watching completely how the Cardinals offense is going to pan out, I can see the Arizona Cardinals switching to two main options, James Conner and Trey McBride.
Speaking of James Conner, where are we at? It's such a weird league when it comes to running backs. It's like they never even make their second contract or at least never
Yeah.
really get paid anymore. And he's only 30, and yet, like, that's pretty long in the tooth when it comes to NFL running backs at that point. Do you think he's still a guy that you can, shell out 200 carries a season and kind of really kind of be your bell cow? Or is this a year where, Trey Benson, some of these other guys are going to have to really be a little bit more by committee because he's been the focal point and he's been durable. It's not like he's had, like that has been an issue, but like there's only so much tread on those tires. And for running backs, it goes in a hurry. And it just
Yeah.
feels like he's starting to get towards the back end. I don't know
Mhm.
if they have dreams of making the playoffs and stuff this year. This feels like a year where it should be a little bit more by committee, or maybe that just means throwing it more, not as many touches for him if he maybe plays as many downs. I just don't know if he can sustain the load that he's been given the last few years again this season.
I always say they don't make him like James Conner anymore. This guy is one of one with his toughness and his mindset. I think the Cardinals have done a really good job addressing the depth. They've kept 4 running backs on the roster. You have Amari DiMercato, you have Trey Benson, you have Bam Knight. So I think the Cardinals are going to lean in situations where passing situations. You've seen Trey Benson and Amari DiMercato also have phenomenal run block and pass block abilities. If they're going to do a 2 running back set or something, or a 3 tight end set, and one of them comes around, or maybe a handoff to Tip Ryman or Trey McBride, or they've done that in the past. And DeMercado and Trey Benson have been phenomenal at that. And pass blocking, these guys are little bowling balls. I will say that when you talk about James Conner, I can't see him taking a step back. I think this guy is just a one of one running back when it comes to tenacity and just the grinded out mindset.
Yeah.
He obviously has played hurt in the past for the Cardinals. You can see it there, and it's kind of a phase it out, worry about it later and mindset. And James Conner, everything he's been through personally in his life, they don't make him like him. And he's one of those guys where you watch on Sundays, and any team would love a James Conner, and I can't see him taking a step back. I think he rightfully deserved that second contract from the Cardinals, and I think his teammates feel the same way. Everybody speaks nothing but highly of James Conner, and I can't see the Cardinals turning their back or even shying away from their run game like they did last season. I think it'll be just as similar.
Yeah, I mean, he was so solid last year, but it was year 8, and he had a career high for carries, he had a career high for yards, played a
Yep.
career high 16 games. Like, that's wonderful. Like, if you can get that in year 8, it's just I've watched enough NFL to know that that's not
Yep.
something that's not the trend. That's not the way that the league, normally happens with running backs. And so I get a little nervous when you start seeing kind of the seasons stack up and the carries start stacking up, and it's like everyone has a cliff. Everyone's got a number, and it's different for every player, and maybe his number's further down than some of these other guys. Um, you know, we're seeing that with a Ravens running back, Derrick Henry. Like, he should have fell off a cliff years ago by how many carries he had in comparison to most people. He's still going crazy. So like
Oh
maybe
yeah.
there's nutrition, maybe there's some things going on in the league where you can buy yourself a few extra seasons or something. And I would love that because the dude is so solid. He just does everything at least at like a B plus level. Like, you are getting great efforts on everything anytime he is involved in a play. I just get I just get a little nervous because it's starting to get a little bit older, and so it's just like you get.
Yep.
I don't know if you can keep going back to that well, as much as you want. We talked a little bit about the defense, but I wanted to get a little bit more specific on because if you're going up against Kamara, you're gonna be facing there's gonna be a lot of pressure put on the D line. Um, Calais Campbell comes back this year, and that was one of the big additions in the offseason. They do go out and, draft a guy like Walter Nolan who's not gonna be available, but you have some new pieces there on the line, guys that are getting older, Calais Campbell, but, like, at the same time, how do you feel he changes this dynamic on defense? Because upfront defense last year was a problem. Like, they could not stop almost anybody at the point of attack, and if you add him to just being whether it's the leadership, whether it's the pure size and the skill and just the savvy, does he still have enough left in the tank where he can help elevate the guys that are there on the line with him and kind of stay at that level himself? Or are you starting to also feel like there's a reason he was available? There's a reason that we could go out and get him, and he has been around the block for a time or two. Like, it's a good story, but how much really are we getting out of that?
When Calais Campbell signed here, I know there were a bunch of teams vying for him. I know a lot of Dolphins fans will really want him to
Yep.
return to Miami. Calais Campbell, the Big Red Rage, coming home to Arizona for his last season. Sounds great, when we're gonna see what happens. Uh, he was named a captain. So when you talk about a leadership, he even said, he's like, I haven't been here in a while. So it kind of speaks volumes that, they trust me enough to be a captain. He's like, I'm there for all the guys, young and old. And he's always been that way. Calais Campbell, I, he hasn't lost that much of a step. Is he the same guy was when 10 years ago? No. But we watch him and you're still gonna get that production out of him, and they're not asking him to be the number 1 guy. You got Josh Sweat, you got Dalvin Tomlinson, you drafted Walter Nolan. It stinks, but DJ Ojulari is also out too, for the Cardinals, that they're gonna have to deal with a couple of other injuries on the defensive side too. But I think Calais Campbell's gonna be a tone setter for this defense. I think, when you have guys like him up front and Buda Baker in the back being the voices, Josh Sweat coming in here, he's gonna be, hard-nosed talent. He's gonna be flying around out there. But also it kinda takes the pressure off Sweat to be this vocal leader, he's coming in here just like Calais, both new, both coming, but Calais is coming back. He this is his what if he when he gets his gold jacket, he will say, "I'm an Arizona Cardinal." Um, so you get Josh Sweat to just more focus on the gameplay of it, and you have Calais kinda take over that leadership role, that voice, that vocal point on the defense. I think it's gonna speak volumes, for the Cardinals' defensive line up front. I think it's gonna be a night and day difference for this defense, and Alvin Kamara's gonna be a really good test week 1, so
I just loved him coming back just purely for the Walter Nolan to see what it takes to be a pro at this level and to be like that leadership just on the day to day, just watching the way he goes about his business, the value, if you can just soak that in for 1 year, that will pay huge dividends for a guy that I mean, the Cardinals would love for that to be the heir apparent and to kinda step in and be the new guy that kind of, leads the way there on defense too. So, like, that is for me, that was the big thing that I saw that was like, "Man, that is a great bring in a veteran leader that can help the young rookie kinda figure it all out too."
100%, and, you you look at how his longevity in the league has been, he's never been one of those guys where you go, "Okay, how is he still out there?" You watch him and you go, "Wow, Calais Campbell's still got it at this level, at
Yeah.
this age," and so I think, when they had an opportunity to bring him back, even on a personal level, I'm sure with, Michael Bidwell and Monty Austin would love to have him come back. It was kind of a no-brainer to
Yeah.
help shift this defense, and I think his leadership will also be a massive, massive help for this Cardinals defensive line.
Let's look at the big picture. Every year there is one team that everyone has high expectations for that kind of seemingly falls flat on its face and doesn't deliver. And there's always one team that no one kind of that went from the pits and then comes up out of nowhere and kind of has a breakthrough season. And the trendy pick to be that team, it seems like across the airways, is a lot of people think the Cardinals are going to be that team that has a breakthrough season and kind of gets back to being, the postseason type team. How do you feel about it? What are you thinking? If we're talking here and 4 months down the line, season's done, regular season, you got them going to the playoffs this year. What do you think their record's going to be in the regular season?
Well, it's tough. You look at last year how it started. Yeah, you had to take on the Bills, the Lions, the Rams, Niners, the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. Starts out a little bit easier. You got the
Yeah.
Saints, you got the Panthers. You're still gonna take on the Niners and the Seahawks, but those 2 teams are not the same as they have been in the years past. I know a lot of the national media think the Niners and the Seahawks and the Rams are still gonna be, elite level, even though maybe it's taking a step back, but still, have them highly rated. I think the Cardinals have a great setup. You take on the Titans and the Colts right after. So there's a really good chance that the Cardinals could start the first 6 weeks of the season getting 4 or 5 wins.
Yeah.
I think if they build up some consistency and just kind of get that confidence up, you've seen, though, last season, they had opportunities, multiple opportunities, and the Seahawks came in and ruined it. So you have to go in and figure out how can you eliminate those mistakes. The Cardinals shown that they can contend with the best of the best. Week 1, they went into Buffalo, they were up 17-3 until a questionable pass interference penalty for the first half. And it was one of those things where you look and you're saying this Cardinals team is young, they're talented, and if they can put pieces of the puzzle together, now you're getting another full offseason, another full preseason. And they actually played in the preseason. Gannon actually started playing, Kyler in the preseason, which is, great to see. Maybe some of those kinks are gonna get worked out. That Kyler interception in preseason that everyone was talking about against the Chiefs. Um, but what the Cardinals need to focus on is winning those divisional matchups, number 1, key. Um, I think the number 1 team in their way is if Matt Stafford can stay healthy, I think it's gonna be the Rams. I was at that Rams-Vikings game at the Cardinal Stadium. I needed to go just to go see a playoff game between 2 teams. It was really interesting. But that Rams team looks good, and I don't think, I think Devontae Adams is gonna hurt. Still got Kyren Williams, Puka Nacua. If Matt Stafford stays healthy, then I think the Rams might have the better chance to win the division. I still think the Cardinals are a 9, 10, 11 win team. I think the Cardinals are gonna fight for a wild card spot this season. Um, you have to win the winnable games. And when you play the Jaguars, the Colts, and the Titans, that division, you have to take care of business. There's been even last year going into Carolina, that overtime game in Carolina. Um, I'm sure they had an upward trend at the end of last season, but the talent level was 2 different things, 2
Yeah.
different games, and so you have to win those games. I think the Cardinals are gonna find a way to eliminate those mistakes. Gannon is a great head coach. When that report card came out and he got an A minus, the players, and he was ranked 8th out of 32 coaches in the NFL, that was speaks volumes. He's gonna be one of those guys that helps figure out those mistakes. Petzing and Rollis, they're kind of, going as the team goes. I think everything's gonna stay consistent, but you have to execute and you gotta eliminate those mistakes, and if they do, I can see them making a wild card spot and giving the Rams a chance, maybe some fight to win the division.
They're at 8.5 right now on most books, but they're in money, so most places think they're gonna win 9.
Mhm,
I I 9 seems safe. I feel like 10 is a number that I could see them, like, pretty comfortably getting to.
mhm.
Um, I mean, you mentioned 11, 12. I don't know if they're getting that far just because I just I still feel like they're gonna have moments where something where whether it's Kyler not being staying healthy or Kyler making a couple mistakes, and, there's gonna be a couple games that they're in that they find a way to kinda give away. But I think 10 wins is a very realistic number for this team, and I think that's more than enough to get you a wild card game. and you see what happens from there. And once if and when they do make the postseason this year, I think that gets everybody. How we started this conversation was, is there pressure on them to kind of perform and stuff like that? I think they just got to get to the postseason. It's not necessarily win the division. It's not necessarily host a playoff game, but they need to make the postseason and then just not get blown out. Like at least have a good showing in a playoff game, show that things are trending in the right direction. If you can win a playoff game, great. But I think the expectation of this team needs to be we should be in the postseason, and it should be at bare minimum like a very competitive game. And beyond that, great. But like that should be the floor expectations for this season.
Yeah, 110%. That playoff loss to the Rams in LA has left a lot of people salty, and they're saying if Kyler Murray can't get a playoff win, if they go into the playoffs and if being competitive, yeah, I think the Cardinals need to get at least one playoff win. That's something that I think the mood in the building is kind of surrounding. They're saying this is it. We you spent 200 plus million on Kyler, and this is it's go time. And so if they go to the playoffs and it's another Rams scenario or they lose it at the end because of a mistake by Kyler, I still think questions are going to be had because this will be his second, third time where it's just kind of and even late in the season, when before the season Larry retired, those two losses and the ending to Wolford at the end of the season, it was just when the going gets tough and it's on the line, like, is he gonna come through? Is he gonna succeed? And so if you go to the playoffs and regardless if it's at home or on the road and you don't perform or it ends up not going our way, the Cardinals way, or when we're watching and what we're thinking about the Cardinals, how if you can see that it's not going their way and it's visibly frustrating for them, then you're gonna have some conversations.
Yeah, it's gonna be really tough to because he's only got a few years left on that deal. So I mean, it's gonna be tough to sit there and say like we're gonna extend or kind of add anything to it. You're gonna start seeing them maybe think about drafting a quarterback and letting him sit for a couple years, and then have him kind of transition in. Uh, well, week one is here. Going
Yeah.
to NOLA. Let me know
Big
how
easy.
you yeah, how you feeling? Uh, Clearly it sounded like you got, the Cardinals winning this one, but what do you think the final is? And kinda is this gonna be a running away one, or you feel pretty good about it? What do you feel like?
I think the player of the game will be James Conner on the offense. I think on the defense, I'm gonna go ahead and player of the game will be Will Johnson. I think Will Johnson is gonna get an interception. I think, when it comes to, the defensive, they're gonna have their hands full with Kamara. I think it's like you said, it's gonna be a lot of checkdowns, a lot of passes to Alvin Kamara. But when Spencer Rattler does take his shots, I think a couple of the newcomers and Will Johnson has just looked outstanding. It wouldn't surprise me if he gets an interception. But if we're talking about the Cardinals and Saints straight up, my final score prediction would probably be the Cardinals 27 and the Saints 17. I could see the Saints getting a couple scores and maybe a field goal and Cardinals kind of taking over from there. I do think it's going to be a little bit competitive in the first half. I'm not sold on this Cardinals defense just being a totally revamped defense. I think they'll have their opportunities to make some noise and to make some highlight plays. But I do think that the Saints, they have good players on their offense. Olave, Kamara, Brandon Cooks, those guys are decent, good players that can move the chains and get in the red zone and have opportunities. And so I do think the Cardinals win comfortably at the end. Have 10-point win, 13-point win, but yeah, I think the Cardinals just need to focus on the little things and eliminating mistakes. Number one thing.
So originally I thought it was gonna be about 30-17. And then the more I thought about it, I have a hard time picking real blowouts week one. It just feels like there's enough rust to go around that if
Mhm.
it's just mucky, the games tend to be a little bit closer. And so after I kind of settled on it a little bit, it feels a little bit like a 28-20 game or maybe a 27-20. I still think in that I think it gets that close off of a late score that the Saints get that are kind of just a little bit of garbage time where the
Mhm.
Cardinals are doing a little bit of prevent, just letting them burn the clock. So ends up being maybe a one possession game that didn't really feel like a one possession game, but I think they go on to win about 27-20, somewhere around there, right about by a touchdown that was, cut into by a late score type deal. And
So
then they're off and running. Like you said, then you get Carolina at home and you have an opportunity of really starting off this season hot. So hopefully,
coming home for Calais Campbell's return, for Josh Sweat's debut. The Red Sea will be rocking. State Farm will be packed with Cardinals fans, ready to rock and roll. If they can pull out a win, a dominant win week 1 against the Saints, it's gonna be a good start to the season for the Cardinals.
it's seems ridiculous to say like must win for week one, but the Saints are gonna be really bad. Like,
Yeah.
gonna be really bad this year. So maybe this isn't a must win, but this is like can't lose. Like you lose it
Yeah.
would be a really bad loss at the end of the season. So more than that, like you
Clear eyes, full
you
heart.
really gotta win this game. Like you can't there's certain games on this schedule, Green Bay, a few other ones that are like, roll the dice, see what happens. You lose nothing to the world.
Yep.
There's some games on this schedule that is just like, that's a awful team that is going to be trying to lose games by the end of the year. So, like, we really need to have this one. So, again, it's week one. The idea of a must win to open up your season is outrageous. But there's only so many games you circle and say, like, that should be a win. And this one right here should be a win. So,
Mhm.
they gotta go out and get it done still, but I'm excited to see the season. I'm excited to see how it all plays out because it finally feels like there's pieces in play where this is a team that has a real shot at going to the playoffs, a real shot at making some noise, and it feels like we haven't said that in a while about the Cardinals.
The anticipation is high, and you can feel it in the city. Especially with how the Diamondbacks have done and the Suns are doing. All eyes right now for Arizona sports fans are on the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, and it's big time for football too with obviously ASU too, so it's turning into a little bit of a football city right now. Let's just say
Oh
it's
yeah, it's a
all the way it is.
great feeling that football's back.
Awesome. And I really appreciate it, man. Looking forward
Of
to
course, anytime.
reading your write ups and all this stuff. And can't wait to see what happens here on Sunday, man. Thanks for your time.
Appreciate it any day.